Welcome to Lingua Latīna tutorials with Mr. K, Pensum D. This video explains the new grammar and syntax found in Chapter 30 of the Lingua Latīna per se Illustrāta series. It is meant to accompany the Latina Disco text available from Focus Bookstore and the Pensum D worksheets available from 50%latin.blogspot.com or christianlanguage.com. Let's go to line 23 for our first new feature. And here in line 23 we have post tanta negotia magis quam otio fruor. After such business, more than ever I am enjoying my leisure, otio. Here we have otio plus fruor. Otio is an ablative singular from otium, leisure, or rest. And notice in the margin that frui, to enjoy, it's a deponent verb that takes the ablative case. So what you would when you would expect to get an accusative object, I enjoy otium, you get an ablative object. There are a few verbs like this in Latin, and one common way to remember those verbs that take an ablative object are that they are puffy verbs. P-U-F-F, the Y is actually a V, puffy verbs. P stands for potior, poti to enjoy, potiri to enjoy, utor, uti to use, fruor to enjoy, fungor to finish, and vescor to eat. So if you write down and memorize those puffy verbs, it'll help you as you read and write Latin to know that those are the ones, the common ones that take an ablative object. In line 33, we have agricola inquid ipse non sum sed multis agricolis praesum ac diligenter curo ut, etc. So the farmer, he said, this is Julius saying, I am not myself a farmer, but I'm in charge of many farmers. Notice that praesum, to be in charge of, it takes a dative object. And diligenter curo, and I diligently take care that my tenant farmers tend the fields well, tend my fields well. Diligenter, adjectives of one termination like diligens, diligent, or prudens, prudent, form their adverbs with enter, E-N-T-E-R, enter. And notice that it would you'd expect, as you find like fortis, an adjective like fortis, brave, forms this adjective as fortiter. You'd expect diligentiter for diligence, but the Romans shorten it to diligenter. So know that if you have an NS, an ENS adjective like diligence or prudence, you're going to get an enter adverb, diligently. In line 35, we have Orontes, who says, qui vita rustica non fruitur, prudenter facis in quid quod agros ipse non colis. So Orontes said, who does not enjoy country life, non fruitur. This is another example of an ablative, vita rustica, the rustic life in the ablative, with the puffy verb, fruitur, does not enjoy. You'd expect the object, or you expect this to be vitam rusticam, does not enjoy that, but with a puffy verb you get an ablative object. Prudenter is another feature we just saw a minute ago with diligens to diligenter. Prudens, wise, becomes prudenter, wisely. The next new feature is in line 38, which is right here where we have ego numquam instrumento rustico usus sum. I have never made use of a country farm implement. Usus sum is one of the puffy verbs, potior, utor, fruor, fungor, vescor. It's the U of puffy. Usus sum, I've never, numquam usus sum, I've never used. The object, which you expect to be accusative, is in the ablative, instrumento instead of instrumentum. The next new feature is in line 55. So here we have, on line 55, we're looking for sitim. We have sitim here. Nemo negat vinum aqua iucundius esse, sed tamen aquam bibera malo quam sitim pati. So nobody denies that wine is a lot nicer than water, but nevertheless, I prefer to drink water than to suffer or endure thirst. Sitim, here with the im ending, comes from, up in the margin you see, sitis, sitis. Sitis is a true I stem. A true I stem, we saw it with Tiberius earlier, is a noun or adjective that has the I throughout the declension. So if we were going to decline sitis, we would have sitis, sitim, sitis, siti, siti, for nominative, accusative, genitive, dative, ablative. Notice that I's all the way through. Is, or is, im, is, ee. So just note that when you are declining sitis, we see the same. We see sitis down here in this next sentence with orantes in line 57. Orantes melius quidem est aquam bibera quam siti perira. So indeed, it's better to drink some water than it is to die of thirst. To die of thirst. Here we have an ablative singular of sitis, because the ablative singular is the I stem. The I shows up there, just like you would find in a third declension adjective, for example. Siti, from thirst. And what kind of an ablative do you have here? Then to die of thirst. It's an ablative of could be, actually there are two possibilities here. It could be an ablative of cause, then to die because of thirst, or an ablative of separation, because the idea here is being separated from water, then to die, but probably an ablative of cause. In line 74, we have the next new feature. We have in singulis lectis, aut singuli, aut bini, aut terni, convivae, accubare solent. So in each couch, either one by individually, or 2 by 2 or 3 by 3, the diners are accustomed to recline. These numbers are called distributive numbers. They're used in multiplication, like you see here, terni, 3 times 3. They mean they're telling you the answer to, like, how are these together, like in what distribution do you find these things? 1 by 1, 2 by 2, 3 by 3, or 1 each, 2 each, 3 each. It's a good time to review all the different kinds of numbers you've learned so far. The cardinal numbers, which are your just counting numbers, like unus, duo, and tres. Unus a for 1, duo, duai, duo for 2, and tres, tres, tria for 3. And then your ordinal numbers, which are the numbers we use for ordering things, first, second, third, etc. So we have primus a for first, secundus a for second, and tertius a for third. And then we learned our adverbial numbers. Adverbials tell you how many times. And so in English, those are once, twice, 3 times, or thrice, 4 times, 5 times, etc. In Latin, semel for once, bis twice, ter thrice, etc. And then in this chapter, we get the distributives. And the forms for the distributives: singuli ia, you see them in the margin here, singuli ia, 1 and 1, or 1 by 1, 1 each. Bini ia, 2 by 2, or 2 each. And terni ia, 3 by 3, or 3 each. The next new feature is in line 82, and we see, actually it's a review of one we've seen before, patienter expecta dum servi lecto sternunt. So wait patiently, patienter, from patiens, patient. Remember that the ens adjectives, patiens of one termination adjectives like that, form their adverbs as enter, patienter. Wait patiently while the slaves cover the couches. The next feature in line 83, Cenabimus cum primum cocus cenam paraverit, et servit triclinium ornaverint. So we will dine when the cook first has prepared dinner and the slaves have decorated the dining room. These forms, paraverit and ornaverint, are what we call future perfect. A literal translation, if you have this out of context, of paraverit would be will have prepared. It shows an action that'll happen in the future before something else will happen. We don't often use this in English. We don't often say like he will have done this before something else. In context, the way this will often be translated is as a present tense verb, because it's usually coupled with another future tense verb. And since the future perfect is happening before the future verb, then we often translate it in English as a present. So we will dine when this has happened, or after. So we will dine after the cook has prepared dinner and the slaves have decorated the dining room. Notice that this is indicating something that will happen before something else in the future. So, how do you form this? You take the perfect stem, so go to your second principal part. For this, for parare, it's parawise. Take off the isse, so you end up with parav. And then to that you add the future forms of sum, which are ero, eris, erit, eremus, eritis, and then erint. So that's the only change from the future of sum added to the perfect stem, because if you did add the regular future of sum for the third person plural, erunt, it would be confused with the perfect third person plural, which would be paraverunt. So if we were going to conjugate parara in the future perfect, we would have paravero, paraveris, paraverit, paraverimus, paraveritis, paraverint. And that would mean I will have prepared, you will have prepared, he, she, it will have prepared, we will have prepared, you will have prepared, they will have prepared. Okay, let's go on to line 84 and 85, where we see the passive form of this same verb form. So, brevi cena parataet, triclinium ornatum erit. So, in a little bit, dinner will be prepared and the dining room will be decorated. So in a little while, these things will have happened if you're going to be in a literal translation. In a little while, dinner will have been prepared and the dining room will have been decorated, and then we're going to be able to do something else. Remember, this shows something that's going to happen before something else in the future. Parata erit is the future perfect passive, or natum erit, same thing, future perfect passive. Notice how these are formed. They're formed from the supine, and remember that the supine form, the participial form, can have usa, or ei, endings, so singular or plural adjectival endings. And here we see that parata agrees with cena, and ornatum agrees with triclinium. So dinner will have been prepared, and the dining room will have been decorated. The way you form the future perfect passive besides the supine is you add the future of sum as a separate word. Notice that up above we had paraveret, where you add future of sum to the perfect stem. Here you have supine plus the future of sum. So ero, eris, erit, erimus, eritis, erunt. And here you do have erunt, the actual future of third person plural future of sum. So if we were going to fully decline parata erit, we'll just we'll do it with masculine, feminine, and neuter. So paratus and then ero, eris, erit, and parati plural, erimus, eritis, erunt. In line 86, we see another new feature: tandem puer cenam paratum esse nuntiat. Triclinium intremus. So we're going to start here with triclinium intremus. What form is intremus? It's from intrare, to enter. Notice that the A has become an E. So that tells you that this is a present subjunctive, first person plural present subjunctive. What kind of subjunctive? There's no indication here of an ut or a ne or a cum, no indication that this is an indirect question or a doubt clause. So what is it? This is what we call the hortatory, or sometimes it's confused or mixed up with the jussive. It's a way of commanding in a mild way. We translate this in English as let's do it. Let's go, let's visit, let's play, let's enter the dining room. Really, really common construction, the hortatory subjunctive, a polite way of saying let's do something rather than commanding someone. Enter the dining room. Intrate triclinium, if you're talking to your friends, rather than saying intrate triclinium, you're going to likely say triclinium intremus. Let's do this. The next new feature is in line 90, and we see Rosae et lilia et alia multa florum genera in mensa sparsa sunt inter vasa et pocula argentea. Roses and lilies and many other kinds of flowers were spread about on the table between the vases and the silver cups. So wasa here, which I'm translating as vase, but it's just all the dishes. You can just translate it as dishes, between the dishes and the silver cups. Wasa in the singular is was wasis. It's neuter, so if we're going to decline was in the singular, we have nominative and accusative the same, so was, then wasis, and then we have wasi and wase. But in the plural, notice that instead of doing what you'd expect with a neuter third declension, having like wasiya along like Maria, you end up with just wasa, as if it turned into a second declension neuter, like oppidum. So you end up with wasa for nominative and accusative, then wasorum and wasis. So just remember that wasis, the neuter noun for dish or dishes or vase, it has two declensions. It has the regular neuter third declension, and then it has the plural form, which is the like a neuter second declension. And I think I said I may have mispronounced the ablative singular for was, which is wasi, just like mare. It's so it's wasis, and then wasi, not wase, wasi. The line 120 has our next new feature. So let's go ahead here to where we have ergo bibamus. So Julius, raising up his cup, says ergo bibamus. Bibamus comes from bibera, meaning to drink. Notice that the E of bibera has become an A here. So this is an indication that we're in the subjunctive. We're in a first person plural present subjunctive active. And there's no other trigger here. There's no ut, no ne, cum, or indirect question trigger. So we have another hortatory. Let's drink, rather than commanding your friends, bibate, drink up. Let's drink is a more polite way of saying that. In line 115, we have a couple of ways to say to mix water with wine, and we have another one to say sprinkle salt on food. So looking at line 115, we have Romani vinum cum aqua miscent. So the Romans mixed their wine with water, and they aren't accustomed to drinking unmixed wine. Orontes alone, to whom it isn't pleasing to drink, etc. So we have one way of saying this in line 115. So vinum aqua, to mix water, to mix wine, cum aqua, to mix wine with water. Another way to say this, though, is in line 132, where you use a dative, and you say, I'm going to mix, you could, here, sempre mel vino misceo, I always mix honey to my wine. This is the dative, not the ablative. I mix honey to my wine. We could say aquam here. I mix aquam to my wine, literally. So you can mix with, and you can mix to or for the thing that you're mixing into. The same thing applies to salt. So if you look back at line 109, you see that ego coco, I don't praise that cook, says Orantes, and he sprinkles some salt, carne, from caro carnis, so this is the dative of caro. He sprinkles some salt to his meat. The other way of saying that is to, the way we would say it in English, to sprinkle the food with salt. And you see that in line 111 here, where Orantes is accustomed to sprinkle his food, kibum, sale, with salt, where you have an ablative of means or instrument. So you just need to pay attention that you could have two possible ways of doing that, one with the ablative and one with the dative. So those are all the new features that you'll find in Chapter 30. Thank you for listening.